Check, check. Recording.
This is Botgrinder.
Recording.
He's a YouTube creator with about 34,000 subscribers and an FPV pilot. And recently, he announced that he wants to crowdfund $70,000 to buy a plot of land and turn it into a public access FPV park near his home in Philadelphia. And this is Josh Bixler. He's one of the co-founders of Flight Test, which is now one of the largest FPV and RC flight-related YouTube channels with over 2 million subscribers. And not too long ago, Josh crowdfunded over $200,000 to buy the Edgewater Golf Club and turn it into the Edgewater Airfield, a humongous public access airfield for RC flight. Now, there are a lot of differences between what Botgrinder's trying to do and what Josh Bixler did. But one of the things I've learned in my life is that when you're starting out doing something for the very first time, there's almost always somebody who did something similar before you, and you can learn from their successes and their mistakes. So I asked Josh Bixler if he would sit down with me and talk about the Edgewater Airfield and how he made that happen.
Looking back at what I didn't know that was so critical, it's no wonder this didn't flop on the ground. But I don't say it tongue in cheek. It is the grace of God that got us through this, and the people that would come out at the right time for the right reasons was no accident. It was amazing. So I hope that's the same for Bot, and that he has success in it and stuff. So
I know I'll start. Here's where I'll start the interview. Josh Bixler. I'll start, and I know you hear this a lot, but I'm going to do it anyway. It was you and Josh Scott and Chad Capper and David Windestall with the original Flight Test videos way back when that got me into what eventually would be FPV. My first airplane was a Bixler, foamy.
Oh my goodness.
My first multi-rotor was a Flight Test Electro Hub. And years later, here we are. But I want to just get the chance to thank you for all the work you've done over the years. I wouldn't be here without you.
Well, turning back around you, man, you're on the daily helping people learn something new every day. And I love where this community has gone. They get to be part of something in its infancy, and so grateful those times in the small garage and, learning about it. It was the perfect timing and with the perfect people. And now that the community, you included, are growing that, it's just wonderful to sit back and witness, what this family is doing. So thank you for the kind words. And that's a real special time in my heart too. And it means the world that you shared that.
What we're here to talk about, there are so many things we could talk about because Flight Test is so many things. But what we're here to talk about is the airfield that you guys have. Before we get into that, though, I think there's probably some people in my audience, hard to believe, who maybe don't know who you are and who Flight Test is. So do you want to just give a little bit of an introduction in case those people are out there?
I love it. Yeah. And I'm never going to assume that someone knows what Flight Test is. Basically, Flight Test has been around for coming up on almost 13 years now. We started in, like you said, a small garage in Chad Capper's basement, and making content, family-friendly content that people can use to grow in the hobby, to enjoy different aspects of the hobby. We love flight, period. Anything that flies, we try to gravitate towards and give people the knowledge that they need to just get started. As people grow in the hobby, our belief is that there's amazing, talented people we can hand that relationship off to, Josh, you being one of them. And we put out regular content, and we've been doing that since day one, and we've grown to about 2.1 million subscribers since then. And we always talk about Flight Test family. We want people to use this hobby to connect with each other. In my heart, before Flight Test existed, this started as an outreach ministry just to do exactly that, to connect families around common activities. And as time went on, we developed something called Flight Fest, and that's where people can come together. We always say, bring the people you love and the planes you don't, because we have big build tents and people can come in there, they can build all day long. And then we have these combats and different activities where they put them up against each other. And that's where our community is really taking the reins and run with it. We don't bring the biggest and the coolest projects there. They do. And we get to be participants in that.
You guys, as you said, you started out, you were just making videos in Chad Capper's basement. Eventually, I remember, I'm going to try to remember the history. I remember you guys got an office, right?
Yeah.
And you sort of went full time. I remember that building, and you were making videos out of that building. And eventually you reached a point where you started thinking about buying this property. Tell me the name of the property again.
So the property is Edgewater Golf Course. It's now known as Edgewater Air Park. And that it kind of went from Chad Capper's basement. During that time, I was part-time, and we're doing the video content. All of us had other day jobs. About a year and a half into it is when I was like, I don't want to do this part-time. I want to do this full-time. And that's when we started bringing in the store and the design plans that I would do and developing that. That quickly moved us from Chad Capper's basement to a little single-car garage below his main offices. And from that point, it grew to a driving range of all things in North Canton. And something was on my heart before, even Flight Test existed. And that was what that ministry I was describing. We had people come together, fly. We taught them how to fly, and then that grounds was theirs to use. They could come out and they could enjoy the grounds. They could fly as families, and we got out of the way. And a lot of times you'll hear us say, "Flight Test family, Flight Test family." That's not like a tongue-in-cheek thing to me or in my heart. It's meant. And if you're a family, you need a home. The problem was within North Canton, we had no way to support that activity. We had no way of completing that vision. So we communicated that to the Flight Test community, and we explained to them, like, we want a place where it's an open park that they could come, they could fly, we could teach people, and everything that you just described with Flight Fest, we could have on a more intimate daily level. Maybe not the crazy combats, but the people coming out, building, flying, fixing, learning, connecting. And so we shared that with the community in the form of a crowdfund. And the goal wasn't to buy the land outright. I firmly believe if you're going to do something, you need to have 100% skin in the game and leverage as much. My wife and I actually chose to finance that, but what we did have to have is the money to develop it. The grounds that we came across was Edgewater Golf Course, and that was located in a little town of Minerva. Is out in the middle of nowhere, no zoning, and that's a big factor. I'll tell you why later. Golf courses are fantastic runways. The only thing is, you have trees, you have some obstacles you got to deal with. Now, what we did with the crowdfund was we communicated that vision. We talked about we need help developing it, and very quickly, we raised the full amount of money. And from that point on is where we started to take over. It took almost 9 months to be able to go from purchasing to moving in. And April 1st was when we moved in. And I'm trying to remember the exact date. Was it 2019? Why in the world were we doing a crowdfund? If this was just a Flight Test venture, why in the world would we ask money for that? No, we're a business. If we believe in it enough, we'll fund it ourselves. This had to be something that is separated. And also, I wanted to make sure that the vision and what I was communicating to you, where we could have families and friends coming out here for free and learning and having these activities. If, say, tomorrow Flight Test was sold somewhere, I want to make sure that what people contributed to was preserved. And
that's the thing that I think people overlook. And I don't know if there's a way you can communicate to people who don't already understand that value.
Yeah.
Because they'll crowdfund and they'll take money and then maybe they'll succeed or maybe they won't. But you have to have that accountability to the people who support you. And ultimately that has to be personal accountability, because it's very unlikely anyone's going to sue you and get their money back. So either you have it or you don't.
Well, you could have all the right intentions, do it wrong, and lose that trust. And the more people trust you when you do something screwed up, even if it's unintentional, the level of trust to the level of feeling of betrayal, it's like a rubber band. It goes this way. Imagine you're married to your wife for 20 years and suddenly you cheat on her. It goes a whole swing versus you're dating a girl and it's like, this isn't working out. We stretched the money in a big way. I general contracted it myself, so that way, rather than paying outside parties to oversee the construction of the upper level of the clubhouse, which is now our headquarters, we did it ourselves. And a lot of that was based on my background. I went to college for architecture and also civil engineering and GC. So I had that core skill set from college in my background, and that proved in a big way. We were able to shave almost $100,000 off of what was raised, and that's what built the pavilions. That's what built the fire pits and the amenities and the children's playground and stuff. So our vision for Edgewater is to literally have people come out, and I mean, today's a nice day. It will not surprise me if we'll see 2 or 3 people popping out to fly, and they don't have to pay a single thing. We use a waiver form. So there's no AMA insurance or anything that they have to, buy yearly to overcome. And then usually during the warm season, the 6 months out of the year that we have nice warm weather, every month we'll have a major flying event or an activity. And that event is actually a charged event. During that time also, though, we have sprinkled in quad races. We have people like schools using them for campgrounds and campouts and stuff like that, which is going back to the original thing, having an adjacent activity or adjacent thing to bring energy gives people more opportunity to say, I really want to learn to fly.
let's talk about the money part, because I think anybody who wants to do something like this,
Yeah.
it seems like you came into this, you already had an established business. It weren't quite the sort of green, scrappy, just trying to pull something together.
Yeah.
But I still think there's lessons that can be learned from anybody who is
100%.
trying to do something like this, to create a space like this. So you crowdfunded the money. What kind of sort of accountability was there? How did you set that up so that people who donated to the crowdfunding could feel that, there's always potential when you crowdfund that then people will go, oh, I felt like I got ripped off, or I didn't get what I expected. Like, what kind of precautions did you take to make sure that didn't happen?
Well, and that's you definitely handle that with the utmost sensitivity to communicate your vision very, very clearly. It has to start with the vision. So people aren't buying to legitimately saying, okay, I'm paying for this runway to be placed exactly in this place. They're paying for the grounds to be able to be developed so people can come out and freely fly. So very high end. This is going to be something open to the public, able to allow people to fly, to build, to have fun, to have activities, to have events. The crowdfund that we did, we had different perk levels, and different perk levels got them either a t-shirt, a sweatshirt, a model airplane, a drone. Some perk levels got them free admittance for their family for life for Flight Fest. So we tried to come up with perks, like what is a way to give back that doesn't just say, here's your thing, thank you so much, but here's something that's going to daily remind you of what you endorsed. And those perks are different for every community. I love the fact that I still see today, one of the neatest things we have is a challenge coin that we made. It was a really nice metal heavy coin. And that coin, still to this day, you go up and meet somebody that you've never met before and they pull it out of their pocket like, hey, I'm one of the supporters, or they have their founder's hat on. Different communities value those things differently. So with the multi-rotor community, with what you're talking about with Botgrinder, it may not be a t-shirt. It may be a really sick, prop wrench or something, but it is a give back. What we wanted to do is we wanted to be responsible and making sure that people understood that we do have skin in the game. I mentioned this earlier, and I want to be very clear. Flight Test does not own these grounds. My wife and I personally believed in this vision. The debt is ours. So if this thing goes sideways, it's our house, it's our livelihood, it's our assets on the line, not Flight Test burden to carry it. So Jen and I don't own, my wife's name is Jen, by the way. Jen and I don't own Flight Test. A corporate entity owns Flight Test. But this way, we're able to keep the vision to what we told the community we would do. We're held accountable to it. And as far as the money handling and everything goes, the perks and everything were immediately fulfilled. There's still a number of perks like the paver bricks for the patio that we're putting in. As we develop runways, there's different pilot stations with different people's names on them. We're very clear to say, like, this is a slow rollout, 3, 4, 5 years. As we develop the grounds, these things will activate. There's one thing that is absolutely critical to making us a success, and it's not my brain, it's not my activities, it's the volunteers. We have a group called the Edgewater Flight Crew, and that Edgewater Flight Crew, they're the group of probably 14 individuals, most amazing humans you've ever met. They fly the least and serve the most. It's not unlikely that I'll be coming out to work on a Saturday and I'll see 2 or 3 of them just showing up just to clean up or pick up limbs or to help people. And those people are really the lifeblood of the ground. So if anyone's ever looking to do a project like this, it has to be beyond themselves. It has to have a group of people behind them. And in my case, I'm also married to one of the most incredible women I could ever hope for. And she is incredibly supportive. She has just a kind, nurturing heart, and she loves being out here helping too. And she's been supportive of this. Just imagine coming home and saying, sweetheart, I want to buy a golf course.
Right.
That's the caliber of wife I have in my wife, Jen. But that is critical too. So you can have a great idea up here. You can have the passion to do it. You can even have the funds. But if you don't have people ready to serve, the culture, the vibe, the energy will quickly go away.
You guys, of course, have a business, thankfully a successful business. And so you have the prerogative to have employees. But as you said, volunteers are still essential. And for a smaller organization that didn't have a cash flow or business, it's basically going to be all volunteer.
Yeah.
How do you stay respectful and accountable to your volunteers? Because I've seen cases where organizations will take volunteers, they'll work them like dogs, and then they'll burn them out. And it's like, is that really the best thing to do? And of course, it doesn't feel like the kind of vibe you put out.
Well, and you're spot on, and that's exactly why we don't have our employees dealing with the grounds. This is not a flight test venture. As I said before, my wife and I own it. We run it. The volunteers are the dear friends. So, in other words, we don't have employees of flight test coming out and maintaining the grounds, or volunteers doing it while we have fun. The grounds are maintained by a separate group of volunteers. So everything the flight test does, or I'm sure, sorry, everything Edgewater does has no financial or ties or burden to flight test. And that's really important because that does keep it from people getting used. People do it at their own goodwill. Now, what's really cool is if you, we call them flight crews, and kind of my vision is we get different flight sites all over the country. I don't believe in calling them clubs. Clubs have a hierarchy, clubs have a bureaucracy that's attached to them. Clubs bring a lot of ugly. With what the FTCA is doing to make flying sites, a group of volunteers is not the president, the secretary, the treasurer, and all the old order that you see. It is a group of people that say, hey, I'm really good with maintenance. I want to help out with maintenance. All right, cool. Then you can help out with maintenance. I'm really good with teaching people how to fly. I want to teach people how to fly. And it's an organic approach to it where people do it because they want to do it, not because of the position they've been elected to do, not because of the hierarchy and the delegation coming from the top down, but people coming forth. That group was pretty much identified before Edgewater became a reality. But as we did the crowdfund, we had people come out of the woodwork saying, hey, I'm really good with making fire pits. Can I put a fire pit on there? We didn't take their charity. We paid them. We said, thank you so much. We'll take it. Please give 110%, but let us know how much the materials are going to cost. We're not going to make it a one-sided deal. And I think that was really good because when they came out, it wasn't like, I don't want to come out because I don't want to be asked to do another thing. They came out because they're excited to contribute and to grow.
So it sounds like one of the things you would advise is to have that sort of core group of volunteers behind you as you go in, people who share your vision, who share your values, and you're kind of going to be on the same page as you get through those the very tough initial steps of setting it up.
Yeah.
And then people come out of the woodwork and they want to help.
Yeah, it's amazing. We always have a spring cleanup and oftentimes like a fall shutdown day where it's not just the flight test flight crew, but it's also the people that, hey, we're doing this on this day. You want to come out and help? Yeah, we'll be there. And it's amazing to see they take the initiative themselves. They also give us the feedback too. All these runways, you can watch the original crowdfund video. They're fairly close to what I was saying, but I was thinking we're going to do this like that. Thank God I didn't, because I would have been chopping down trees I should have left. I would have been putting things where they shouldn't have been. My wife gave me some really powerful advice, and she's like, just do one thing and step back and observe, and then do another thing and step back. Thank God I didn't raise millions and millions of dollars and just hire everything done, because it wouldn't have been right. But seeing the feedback from this core group of people and also from the crowd and the energy going through, it's like, all right, we need camping right here, because everyone, when they want to pitch a tent, goes right here. So let's put our amenities right here. Okay, wow, this is great for flying this type of plane, but we definitely don't want a pattern ship coming in this direction, or a plane that does 100 miles an hour. We got to find a different spot for them. Helicopter, same way, every aspect. One thing that worked really well for us, and this is separating us from how the AMA approaches it, is we don't require people to buy any kind of insurance. What we do is we have a waiver system, and it costs a little bit of money to make a really good waiver, but people are familiar with that. They sign the waiver. It's good for the year. It's a waiver liability and risk and stuff. They're assuming and accepting the fact that when they come on here, they could, God forbid, get hit in the head with an airplane, or have an accident or cut their fingers on a prop. But the neat thing is we don't just say sign the waiver and it's the Wild West. We have pilot stations, we have setbacks, we have flight rules and flight things, but it's done in a very friendly, casual way where it's like, okay, I can take a 5-year-old and I can teach them how to fly. And that 5-year-old can be next to an 85-year-old, and neither the 5-year-old or the 85-year-old are going to be concerned or nervous because they see the areas they need to go. And it's very relaxed, but at the same time, very safe. I got a amazing first aid kit, and it's still fully stocked.
That's good.
That's by the grace of God, but it's also not by accident that we put everything to show people how to do safe operation. I'm saying that because in order for people to have a waiver, there needs to be a pretty high level of insurance on the grounds, and that's something that we also do, and it's definitely not cheap.
That was one of the things that came to mind. I've been involved in running organizations, festivals, and so forth. And at the beginning, we didn't have any money and we didn't have any insurance, and we just did it, and we crossed our fingers. And then later we had money and we got insurance, and there was one incident with that where we were glad we had that insurance, thank goodness. Nobody wants to think about that stuff, but anytime you're having the public come to your property to do an activity where there's the potential for property or injury, property damage or injury, there's potential that somebody's gonna try to sue you. And so you guys feel like the waivers cover you there, that you have insurance on the grounds and waivers, and you think that's sort of the right level for you guys?
You can never be fully covered. They always say insurance poor or whatever they call it.
Right.
That is another reason why my wife and I personally chose to finance the grounds, hold the grounds, grow the grounds. I don't ever want something bad to happen and a lawsuit to come and the hurt flight test. Flight test gets to be here. We get to do content here, inspire. Many of the team get to serve on a daily basis, teaching people to fly. But I don't want to see, an unfortunate act, and because we're a profitable company, something bad come. So
that makes sense.
One of the things that my wife and I definitely thought about, prayed about, and agreed on was, let's take that liability. So my wife and I have that liability. If something happens and someone gets nasty about it, it's again going to be our necks on the line. That's a sobering thought, especially when you look at what you're conducting on the grounds, and I think that's a good thing, because it's not like you're hiding behind a corporate umbrella. If something goes bad, it's going to be your neck on the line, and because of that, the safety culture here is very strong. My heart is not to see this be the only location. I would love to see flying sites all over the country, similar to skate parks.
Exactly.
Every city, it's a place for people to congregate, and if someone's interested, they can go to that place. Every different type of flying has a different culture, different energy. For Edgewater, the reason I call it the Disney World of Flight is I want all those different cultures and activities and energies to be able to come here and be fully experienced. When I go to Hollywood Studios at Disney World, you get a certain vibe, and when I go to Epcot, you get a certain vibe, or Animal Kingdom. I want when people go to this runway for them to be like, wow, this is a really cool vibe here. It's friendly, it's low stress, but then when they get over to the back area and they're quad racing, I want it to be more industrial, more challenging, more intense. Even the kind of music and the beats and stuff that we play, you can make that so you're seeing the whole world of activities, but at the same time, when you're in your little pocket, it carries its own energy. It's not just sterile ground that you're flying on. And then people get to really, speak into that area. So I'm excited about you guys talking about a drone racing area or a drone freestyle area.
I looked at, I thought about, though, like I recently got to go out to Portland and see the FPV park out there. Eric Sackler, I think, is the guy's name.
Okay.
And it's his property. It's a similar situation to you. He lives in the mountains. He lives in the trees. He owns an excavator, because of course he does. And he just pours his own money into this and builds it up. And it's easy, but also he's not open to the public. It's his home. So of course he invites people there sometimes. And the idea of having one of these parks that's open to the public, that everyone can go, it feels like you've really realized that for your community. And it would be really cool to see that be realized for something like the FPV community as well.
I love that. Well, and where our passion comes down to one simple saying for us: we like to connect people around common activities. And when we got this land and stuff, we didn't just say, okay, flying only. Right outside my office to my right, a lot of people had RC cars. Met up with an amazing gentleman. He's like, hey, I have a hobby shop. We need a place to do rock crawling, and I have an excavator. Can I put a rock crawling course? It's like, yeah. So now we have, we have camping, but we have flying, we have, 3 different runways, but then suddenly there's surface coming in. And it's like, well, wait a minute, but your flight test? No, we're a place that uses land to connect people around common activities. And we take that vision to the golf. Originally, the intention was to wind down the golf, but how cool is it when you have a grandpa come in and he's suddenly seeing us walk out with a watermelon and a 15-foot airplane to drop it, and he gets to see this crazy thing, and he has a little morsel of gossip. Well, next thing he knows, his grandson or granddaughter are like, I want to go there. Now he's bringing his grandkids along. Well, they're coming out on Thursday night, and suddenly they're building together. So it's such a cool way to bait and switch. And definitely what you mentioned, the camping amenity. We have a little restaurant downstairs, the hobby shop, so people can get whatever parts they need to keep them going. We don't have a huge one. It's all the basics. Those kind of things keep people there longer. The longer they're there, the more memories they make. One thing also is before this had ever happened, we had like the city of Alliance reach out to me and say, "Hey, we have some park area that we just don't know what we can do with. Could you use this for your drones and your flying?" So I could definitely see where just like skate parks, cities would say, "Hey, here's some land. Can you develop into a skate park?" I can see a lot of cities and towns saying, "We need something cool here that brings energy." And especially with STEM and with all the aviation needs that we have, those places can be used by multiple different activities. And you
Yeah.
just got to be able to support it and host it there.
Yeah. Well, it's really great to talk to you about this because my first reaction to a lot of things, a lot of times,
Mhm.
is cynicism. I guess is a good word for it. I just think about all the ways it could go wrong, and then
Yeah.
I like try to fix them. But ultimately, it's a negative point of view, and it's great to have somebody reflect back to me a positive point of view, a hopeful one about
Yeah.
all the ways it can go right and be positive. And
Um,
so on a personal level, I'm glad I did this
yeah.
interview.
Well, I
Mm.
like that. And full transparency, once this kicked off and people adopted, you'd think that would lower the stress. It was
Oh
the
no,
exact opposite. My
not
wife
at
and I
all.
were moved to tears by the level of support, but the weight of the accountability on there was absolutely what you just said. It was pretty crushing. But that's where, by the grace of God and some amazing people came into our lives, people came out of the woodwork. And what you had to do is be willing to be like, yeah, I could use help. And that would mean a lot. And those people then get to breathe into the vision and to help support it. That was what got us over the hump with this. It wasn't my brain, it wasn't my execution or my project management skills. I am a bag of cats. But the vision was real. I believe it was beyond me. And, again, by the grace of God, it became a reality. Everyone that comes out here, and every year it's just different faces, and it continues to grow. Starting slow and intimate and one success at a time, I think, is the way that you can do it with integrity, and you can do it quicker than you could ever imagine. So if there's any takeaways, there's no way to wake up in the morning and be like, I'm going to go ahead and do this big thing and pull it off. It has to be bigger than you, and you have to have the right people to connect with through the process.
Well, I was going to ask you for like a way to sort of sum up the conversation with any
Mhm.
advice, but I think you did it. I think that was
Thank you.
it.
Yeah.
Any other last advice for somebody who's trying to sort of raise money, buy land, build an FPV park or an RC park or anything like that?
Communicate. Obviously, people don't fly in a vacuum. If you're flying by yourself and you want to do something social, maybe re-examine that, because if you're by yourself, the social element's going to be kind of fleeting from you. But if you're flying with a group of people, talk about it, dream together about it, and get feedback, and also get criticism. Get people to say, okay, where could this go sideways? Don't, not out of fear, but out of just an eagerness to learn as much as you can from it. But I'm a big fan of dreaming big and doing big. That's where we've been blessed to get to where we are today. I always find that things grow best when you're in more of a servant mentality than more of a delegation mentality. So if you want to do something like this, plan on leading by example, and bleeding the most, sacrificing the most, and having most of the consequences on your neck. That keeps things real, and that keeps things from running away from you. And we can have these conversations, and I think it is repeatable then. So I hope to see these in every state and all over the country. This is what the hobby needs. It needs to have these places of land, so people can experience flight in different ways.
Awesome, awesome. Josh Bixler, if people don't know about Flight Test and Edgewater, I'll put links in the video
Thanks,
description
man.
below.
Yeah.
Probably one of the biggest, if not the biggest, RC related YouTube channels. What are you up to? 2+ million, right? More
Yeah,
than that?
2.1 million, and still, again, by the grace of God, growing every day.
Yeah.
It's been fun. Our teams, change. We look a little bit older, but the vision and the culture and the calling has never changed. One thing
That's true.
too, Josh, please, with your group of friends and team members and community, these grounds are not, again, just only for flight tests, only for our group locally. We had Street League Nationals here. If there's an FPV event, if there's a flying event that a group or a club wants to use these ground for, please reach out and contact us, because we want to book up 2023 as quickly as possible, and have not just flight test events or flight test events, but also every aspect of flight here. So I'd love to see IO here someday. We can have three different areas running. It's not nearly as big as the AMA field, but the
Hmm.
topography here is ridiculous.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll put it out there and we'll see.
Love it.
We'll see what happens. Thank you
Yeah.
so much for your time, Josh Bixler.
Great talking to you, brother. Thank you.
Same.